retired provost and CEO of Enderun College in the Philippines, and he may talk about that a little bit later. Former president of Teal College in Greenville, dean, department head, and tenured professor of marketing and management at California State Universities. Got a pretty strong background in executive management and finance and marketing, active in his church. And I've known him for many years through the DMLA program in Freemasonry. He's well known as a speaker, consultant, educator, deal maker, and friend maker. I thought that was pretty cool. And is a permanent resident of the Philippines now on a quota visa awarded for his humanitarian work. And when I Googled him to find pictures of him for this, I found that he also has his own Pokemon character. So when it came up, I got to see Lance Master. So with that, Lance, why don't you, I will stop the share and you start to share your program.
Thank you, Tom. It's really an honor to join you this evening. And for me, it's 12:30 a.m. Here, and for you guys, it's lunchtime, I guess. I have a short PowerPoint slide presentation, and I'll go ahead and share a screen with you. We can take a look at that, and then I'm hoping that that I won't talk too long. I mean, after all, I'm a professor and I tend to talk too long. So we'll see if I can keep my presentation short so that there's lots of time for question and answers. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that screen share now. And here we go, screen share. And I'll go ahead and put the PowerPoint on. Whoops, we'll go back up one slide. Where is it? Page up. Okay. So with that, I've been asked to talk about Rotary in Manila and the Philippines and about what we're doing here. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and click that. And so this is kind of our meetings are virtually, I think, around the world right now. We have, oops, my internet connection is unstable. I hope that I don't disappear. We have these meetings online, and Rotary Club of Manila has also been meeting with Zoom, and we're now holding our official meetings rather than calling them substitutes, so that we can get greater participation. And I'll talk about the size of our club and so forth as we go through this. The first thing that I wanted to share with you is that today is the first day of Ramadan. And we have tremendous diversity in the Philippines, religious diversity as well as racial and so forth. And as you might have gathered from the brief bio, I am a man of faith, strong faith, and I am a prayerful man, a frequent prayer. And I'd like to share with you just this very brief prayer, this Rotary International. It says, during this holy month of Ramadan, let us pray to Almighty God for special forgiveness and mercy in these difficult times faced by the whole world due to COVID-19. So, friends of the Muslim faith, I encourage you to greet them with by saying Ramadan Kareem, and feel free to talk with them, because I've had some very, very positive experiences in dealing with so many Muslims here. We have, I think, maybe 10 in our club, and one of them is one of my best friends here. He's Syrian American, but he's been here in the Philippines for 39 years, and he's the consul of Syria. Today also marks the start of the week of World Immunization Week. And we have this purple color through the Polio Plus. And of course, we share World Immunization Week with the World Health Organization. I think this is an opportunity for us to speak out to our communities with every digital means that we have, and encourage awareness of the scourge that we still have in polio. I'm proud to say that that the Rotary Polio Plus program started here in Manila. We administered the first vaccines here, and we wiped out polio here for 19 years. I think it was 19 years. But this last year, we had some new cases of wild polio virus. And so I'm really concerned about this. You know, I grew up in Erie, and we had a Shriners Hospital there. And at that time, most of the patients were polio victims, including a neighbor of mine. We had a member of our club who was a polio victim. He was a 39-year perfect attendance and a terrific guy. So without further ado, I'll go back to the menu. And I guess the first question I would have is, anybody in the group attending today been to the Philippines? I guessed, I'm sorry, I must be wrong, because I looked at all of the gray hair and I thought that, well, maybe there might be one or two who would be old enough to have been here in the Vietnam War, or perhaps even World War II. We have a lot of Americans who have retired here in the Philippines, particularly those who had been in the Philippines. So I know that we have someone here who's been in Taiwan recently for quite a while, but I want to show you where we're going to be. And by now you've read, you know, this whole thing of where we are and so forth, the points that I'm going to talk about. I don't need to read it. Where? Well, here's the globe, just to give you the context of where we are. This island that is here north of the Philippines is Taiwan. We go up here, here's Japan and Korea, and you know, Hong Kong will be up here. And we've got the other Southeast Asian countries, you know, Vietnam and so forth, Malaysia and Indonesia here, which is the largest archipelago in the world. We're 7,507, except with rising water, it's probably more than that now. So this is the largest archipelago and the largest Muslim nation in the world. And this is born, of course, Australia down here. I'm going to talk about Metro Manila up here. And so this is the best topographical map that I could find. Unfortunately, it dates to 1955. So this yellow area that you know is here was showing what the population looked like at that time. If we saw the yellow today, it would cover this entire area, you know, like this. We've really, you know, grown tremendously. About 17 million people today. Here's just a little bit of the background of our club. As you all know, Rotary was formed in 1905, and 1919 we started here. So Rotary was not quite 14 when one of our members had been inspired by what he'd read about Rotary, the Rotary movement in general. And why was he inspired? Well, because a lot of the American businessmen here in Manila had been Rotarians in one place or another, and they were kind of surprised to find that we didn't have a Rotary Club here already. So he wrote to the president of the International Association of Rotary Clubs. We were far from being Rotary International at that point. Crossing from Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles to the Philippines in those days took about 2 weeks on a pretty fast ship. And before that, it had taken even longer. So you can imagine how cool it was to them at that time that a guy from the Rotary Club of Seattle, which is RC number 4, came here. And he had been appointed by the Association of Rotary Clubs to help organize clubs in the Far East, not just Manila, but throughout the Far East. And he went on from Manila to other ports in Asia to do that. So beginning in January 12th, and he obviously had been here before Christmas, given that it was going to take a while, they met with him, and we became Seattle's daughter club as the first club in all of Asia, and began weekly meetings on January 19, 1919. Of course, the meetings for then and for decades were at the world famous, well, I shouldn't say world famous, at the notable Manila Hotel, which where MacArthur and others stayed during the time of the war. We had 38 to begin with, and the meetings began then, and charter was finally granted that June, Charter 478. So, you know, obviously there were obviously lots of other Rotary clubs by that point, but this 478 is very early for where we are. Now, I mentioned MacArthur. Just before Rotary went dark during the 3 or so years of total Japanese occupation, we met on May 6th on Corregidor to induct MacArthur as one of our honorary members. I'm going to go back to that map for a second here and show you, here's Manila, and this is Corregidor, right here in the channel of Manila Bay. This crossing at that time was about an hour and a half by boat, and today it's about an hour. But I'll also point out one of the reasons that I had a topographical map is to show you that yeah, this is a very volcanic island. And I'll also point out here, you're familiar, of course, with Bataan. Maybe you say it Bataan, but the correct pronunciation is Bataan. And that Bataan march began about right here, came along the coast up here, until eventually they boarded rail cars here. So it was about 70 miles. One of the more hellacious points in that march was when they were in here, and these American and Philippine prisoners of war got shelled upon by our own American guns from Corregidor, shelling them right here. And of course, a whole lot of people died then and more here. This is the first place where they got water up here. You know, it's hours later. It's tough times. I'll also just point out something unusual down here. See where it says Taal Lake down here? And then there's another volcano in an island and you know, water inside, another lake inside. And then there's another volcano inside of that. So this big ridge here is all part of the Taal volcano. As you can see, it's just spelled T-A-A-L, but every time you see that here, it's the 2 syllables. So this Taal volcano is actually the biggest one in the Philippines, and we had some smoke come out of it this last year. You may have read or seen something in the news, and it did come up into this area. So we kept our doors and windows closed a little bit. So the club finally got back together after the war on September 1945, and some before that, but some after that. We have established 20 daughter clubs, and from our daughter clubs, almost all of the 908 clubs throughout the Philippines were chartered. But 3 of our daughter clubs are in other Pacific islands, such as Guam. We are and have been since the get-go the premier service club in Asia. And we have an outstanding record of leadership. And, you know, Tom warned you that I like to brag a little bit. So now I'm going to tell you a little bit. We started the Boy Scouts here. And as a matter of fact, to this day, one of the past presidents of our club is the president of Boy Scouts of the Philippines. He's also a past district governor and a former governor of one of the provinces here and a former cabinet minister and so forth. We formed the Community Chest Foundation. Of course, we all have another name for it today. We formed the Philippine Band of Mercy, first for craniofacial surgery, but eventually this grew into a community, and we have a hospital there. The Safety Organization of the Philippines. We formed the Philippine Cancer Society, and SPCA. The Philippine Tourism Corporation Association is also ours, and our president-elect happens to be a president of that, I think, for the 4th time this year. Welfareville was first a pretty disorganized area, but in a desirable area, and it had a lot of out-of-school youth, and it had a lot of poverty there. We started something called Welfareville, and that's now a separate community within one of our cities here, and it had everything to do with basic literacy skills. This goes back, I think, to 1934. A lot of these, you know, you want to talk about Rotary's commitment to sustainable projects. You can see here from the kind of stuff that we've done that most of our major works really have been sustainable. We've got this Tower Awards, medico-surgical missions. I guess because we have a lot of doctors in the club and always have, we've been interested in providing service that way. We've got our own licensed foundation. This last one here, Hearts for Little Angels, the way that a lot of our charitable work of the club gets started is through the initiative of an individual or a small group of individuals, and we, you know, tell the board what we want to do, or we take something that we've been doing on our own for a while. There's a lot of individual charitable work here. But I started this Hearts for Little Angels, and I'll just tell you a quick story about it. I have a couple of caregiver helpers here, and one has been with me for 9 years. Her nephew suffered from what's called a blue baby. What's the name again, Shell? She's here. Shell? What's the name of the blue baby? I've forgotten what it is. Yeah, no, the name of the disease he had. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, TOS, TOF, tetralogy of Fallot.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a memory problem. I warned Tom about that I forget stuff more than other people getting old, but it's okay. I started this Hearts for Angels with him. I ended up taking this kid to India for open heart surgery to correct his tetralogy of Fallot, and we got it repaired. I worked with another foundation out of Dubai to do that. I found a great Rotarian in India who owned a bunch of hospitals and pharmacies, I don't know, 300 some odd medical associations, and they provided the surgery for free with the help of the Dubai Foundation, and all I ended up putting was the travel bill and so forth. And well, the ambassador of India was a member of our club, and so we were able to facilitate that and a lot of that kind of work. So I took, you know, I told his story to our members. They said, wow, that's cool. How much did it cost? I said, well, really, the travel only cost about $1,000 US. And hands start flying up. Can I sponsor a kid for that? Can we do that? And we did. So we started organizing this. It's now part of our RC Manila Foundation, and we routinely and continuously help these little heart patients. We started the Philippine Rotary Pacemaker Bank, and one of our members is the charter or founding president, founder, chief medical officer of the Philippine Heart Center, and he took us into building that. She and her late husband were one of his patients. We've also got this, Save the Children Foundation. Previous slide, thank you. It says low system resources. I don't know. I've got, anyway, the Save the Children Foundation. And again, this is education oriented. But with all of these ones that are kids oriented who live in slums, we have ongoing feeding operations for them. one of the things that I've done that isn't part of Rotary, except for when you're matching, excuse me, we did a district designated on it, is we have kids and families who are homeless, and we have some of them who live in the Manila cemetery. It's a huge cemetery, you know, hundreds of thousands are buried there. And but there are kids and families who live there, and most of them, because of where they live and because of the fact their families don't have any money, don't go to school. So we have a program on Saturday morning where we feed them, and we have a basic one-on-one literacy program that we do now in conjunction with a French foundation. We've got 4 Rotaract clubs that we sponsor and we work with, and we have 5 Interact youth clubs. This last one I'm going to mention here, you can see by the scope of these that we don't do things on a small level. So our president this year has started this 100 million trees program. We started off, he's a tree fanatic, you know, he owns a bunch of mines, and I don't know whether it was guilt about the environmental damage that these things have caused, but he's a tree person and he's a green person. And he says, you know, he had all of this data about trees and the good that it does. So we now have all 10 districts in the Manila tied in with us, as well as the Boy Scouts and the Philippines Department of Environmental Resources. And we're working together very collaboratively to actually plant 10 million trees. We don't think we can do it in 1 year, especially with what's going on with this COVID, but those are the kind of projects that we do. For our centennial year last year, you know, one of the things going into that was, you remember we had a war going on in Marawi and down in the south of the country. We were the first NGO to go there with relief goods, hands-on. One of the guys in our group is a past secretary of the Department of Interior and Local Government. And we took off down there to see what can we do to help stop this, what can we do to take care. And it ended up being a huge medical package as well as a lot of relief. We spent more than $1 million US on that. Another program that we started was this Rotary Educational Assistant Program, where we work with 2 colleges here that tend to have the poorest students. And one of the things that happens all too frequently is they end up dropping out of school literally in their last year of college, simply because they don't have the money that they need. It's not a matter of tuition. Tuition is dirt cheap at these places. It's a matter of usually transportation, pocket money to buy a cheap lunch. You can buy a good lunch here for $1, and the bus fare or the rail transit system here didn't have the money for that. So we started giving these kids, let's see, $40 a month through the colleges where they got the cash. $40 a month kept 97% of these kids in college to graduate in their first year, to graduate from that last year. And this last one down here, you see this Sari Sarang Aralan. We worked with 2 other foundations and the city of Manila to put this in place. This is a program where we take older out-of-school youth, kids that are 18, 19 years old, pretty much unemployable. You'd think of them as being probably permanently unemployable, and they aren't even 20, 21 yet. But one of the things that they can do is set up one of these little Sari stores. A Sari is something that might be 6 square meters in size. You know, that's like 50 square feet or something like that. And it's just filled with small packages of everyday products that people buy. And because poor people don't have any means of getting to a market or someplace huge, they literally oftentimes buy all of their daily needs there. And a lot of things here are in sachets. You know, at first I thought, wow, what is all of this packaging? What waste? What a environmental problem. And then I learned that they don't have the money to buy a big bottle of shampoo. They don't have the money to buy, you know, more than coffee for today, more than rice for today. So small packages of things. And we set kids up in these stores and teach them how to run them. And I'm going to say we're pretty happy with the success. Not quite half of them have survived for over a year. So now I'll tell you a little bit about our club. We have 235 members at present, and with the exception of me, tends to be a very distinguished membership. We have, for example, a former president of the Philippines. We have current, I think we have 4 cabinet secretaries. We have the Director General of the Central Bank, and that's a whole lot more powerful here than Chairman of the Federal Reserve would be in the U.S. And congressmen, former congressmen, and senators, former cabinet officials. I think we have 11 active ambassadors and 21 active consuls in the club. And you can probably only do that in a capital city, and we're lucky, and we're the club that attracts the most of those. We do allow ambassadors to join as honorary members because they're usually only here for a short period of time, but all of the consuls are regular members. We used to be a lot bigger than we are now, you know, 512, but originally, remember, there was only one Rotary Club. Well, just in our district alone, there are 109 clubs that have more than 3,000 members, and there are 4 districts that I'll tell you about. I want to go back to this point here, old constitution and bylaws. I noticed that there are a couple of ladies participating in your Rotary Club there. We don't have any in RCM. We aren't required to. We aren't in the States, of course, but you know that every other, not almost every other Rotary Club in the world does have women, even if they have an old constitution like ours, but we haven't changed ours because the guys basically don't want to admit women, and I think they should. But the minute we change something in our bylaws to take advantage of some of the great modernization that RI offers, we have to change it all. That's part of the rules, and we haven't for that reason. If we take a look at that whole area, here's where it goes. 3780 is the biggest physical district, and Quezon City itself is the largest single population of the 16 cities that make up the national capital region. You know, when you say Manila, you're basically thinking of one big city. And it's worse than Los Angeles in terms of, you know, you drive from one city into the next, there's no difference. You know, maybe you've buzzed past a sign that says, welcome to San Juan City or something, but there's no difference because it's all just city. And when I say city, we're talking about city, lots of high rises, lots of, you know, I live in Makati here in District 3830. And in my neighborhood, this is an entertainment district, so it's a little bit different, but there are dozens of hotels and hundreds of restaurants. We have, I don't know, something like 80,000 hotel rooms here, and it's a big city. This 3830 Makati, well, we're in 3810, which includes Manila and Pasay, but we don't meet in Manila anymore. We meet in Makati. We've been meeting in a 5-star hotel or in the Polo Club, or usually between those 2 places. And why are we meeting in Makati rather than in Manila? Well, because most of the guys, with the exception of me, of course, most of the guys are rich, and they live in the guarded, gated communities that are, almost all of them are in Makati. A few of them are in Quezon City, but the wealthy people live right here in Makati. So, you know, I'm 2 miles from my house is where Manny Pacquiao, you know, lives in his very nice place. Senator Manny Pacquiao, I might add. So I mentioned before in the Rotary, we've got 10 districts for 908 clubs. That total membership is 26,000. So that's an average. You know, the average club size is not too high, and both are increasing, you know, pretty steadily. And our director, friend of mine, is Rafi Garcia, and he's where I got these data that I'm presenting to you now. Rafi lives in that same community where Manny does, a couple of miles from here. So I've been asked to talk about COVID-19 here in the Philippines, and this is today's report. I get these on a daily basis from our Department of Health. We have 7,100 cases. The total population of the Philippines is pushing 100 million. So our rate of infection is, you know, not too bad, but we're still getting new cases every day, and the numbers go up and down. The number of deaths, you know, we continue to have those, and not as many recoveries as we want. Well, why is this a problem here? And why, when you go back to the projects of the club, why? Well, it's because healthcare in the Philippines is a real challenge, and it always has been. You know, it was mentioned before that I'm active in my church, the Episcopal Anglican Church of the Holy Trinity here, and our church had a member back at this time when Rotary came here, back in actually the time Rotary was founded, and he was a bishop from America, an American Episcopal bishop, and he not only founded our church and a number of others, he also founded what came to be the best. Can you still hear me? I heard an uh-oh. I also, he founded the best hospital here, which again, it's, you know, not quite 2 miles from here. That's where I go. And founded first non-Catholic college in Manila. There had been a Presbyterian one set up in Dumaguete before that. And some of our first charities, some of our first private schools. Healthcare is so limited. Why did I end up having to take a kid to India for surgery? Well, it's because you know, they can do that. I mentioned the heart center here, but there's a 2, 3, 4, 5 year wait for those kids. And we've got, you know, 16,000 cases a year. You know, we've got more than 10% of them are going to die because they don't get the surgery. So we have some real challenges, and that's part of what's going on with the Department of Health here. And with the insurance we have called PhilHealth. All of the Filipinos get PhilHealth, and if you are, they now will cover an entire case for a kid, but sometimes the kid is too young or too small to have the full surgery. So they get a temporary surgery, a stent or something equivalent of that. And then they need the full correction in 2 years, 3 years maybe. Well, the health won't pay for that. They say, you already had one surgery, paid for that, no more. And it's pretty cold that way. We are under enhanced community quarantine. This is probably very similar to what you guys have there. Does this sound like what you have? You know, mass gathering, 10 people, and that's for a funeral. And they really don't want anybody to go. Police pass.
Lance, you're breaking up. Lance, can you hear me? You're breaking up. But
Yeah, I
we're
can
at
hear
a-
you. We're not.
Yeah,
Is it hearing any better now?
Okay. We're at our
I
time
have
limit.
most of this. Okay, so
Lance, in the interest of
I
time,
think
do we take one or two questions and then end it with that?
yep, you bet. Sorry, like I said, Professor, talked too long.
So do we have any questions for Lance?
When was the last time you were out of your house?
Sorry, Tom, did you have a question?
Lance, when was the last time you were out of your house? Can't hear me. He's frozen again.
Third month, 5th day, March 5.
You can start lunch for me. Oh, we'll be soon.
Okay, I guess we'll close off now, unless we can get through to Lance. Not being able to here, so thank you everyone for coming, and be safe out there. And here's to the Rotary Bell.